Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to speak about a very important topic, and it's spiritual narcissism. Spiritual narcissism is real, and 99% of people will fall into this trap. But this trap is not outside of you, this is within you. And the more you acquire supposedly knowledge, techniques, exercises, the more you feel like you belong to some community, the more certificates you accumulate, the more you understand spiritual concepts, the more you inflate yourself, because spiritual growth has nothing to do with all that I mentioned. It doesn't matter how many hours you spend in pampering your body, stretching it, thinking that you're doing yoga. You can't do yoga. You either are yoga or you're not. And spiritual ego is so subtle that it fools even the most sophisticated people. You rush to be seen that you're a good person. You fundamentally believe that you're a very good person, that you're supportive, that you are compassionate, that you cultivate compassion. But in reality, you're a spiritual predator who is looking for validation, to be seen as a good person, because fundamentally you don't believe you are. So you need to perform. You need to look for validation, for the approval, to be seen as a savior, someone superior, someone who knows more than others do. But do you? Spiritual growth, the true spiritual growth, starts with humility, and humility cannot be faked, because COVID spiritual narcissists fake humility very well, and yet they go nowhere. They fool themselves. They think by serving some charlatan magician, a sorcerer, a false guru, they can gain something, secretly longing for the power, for the recognition, for the spiritual status. Spiritual status is not gained on earth per se. Spiritual status is a state of being when you elevate in silence, your frequency elevates, and the world knows you, whether you are physically present or not, because of the elevation, the world elevates, but it happens in silence, without fireworks and public recognitions. So for the majority of people, which are everyone, it's important to look for the signs within oneself, which are rooted at the lack of self-worth, at the lack of, and what is self-worth? It's one's ability to see beyond the veils, to perceive the state of beingness, the state of love, instead of dreaming, instead of conditioning yourselves into thinking that divinity is this, divinity is love, divinity is being. I'm divine because I have ability to return to my natural state. Many times we discussed and emphasized that your ability to return to your natural state is there, but it's not an achievement. Deep, blissful absorption is not an achievement, it's a tool for self-refinement, for correcting the corruption of the personality that you've acquired through past experiences. Social conditioning, spiritual, religious conditioning, etc. As long as you're living for the external projection, for the world, for the validation. You're blind. Your personality is corrupt and you need to correct it. To correct it means to learn to observe oneself, reflect oneself. And not only that, because many of you do recognize your distortions and flaws of the personality, but to refine the outcome, the attitude, the reactions, the behavior. And if that is not there, there is no spiritual growth, there is no refinement, there is an illusion where you continue trying to grasp or hold on to some kind of concepts, ideas of self. Oh, because if I'm doing this, I must have evolved. If I demonstrate a little bit of my power, a little bit of my this and that, people will see me as a savior, as a good person, as a protector, as a liberator, as a healer. Wake up and heal yourself first. Ground yourself, align yourself in humility, and you will be bathing in bliss without a need of anyone's validation. And this bliss is not just a temporary return. It's a foundation, because if you're truly rooted in that, you don't need to prove yourselves to anyone. You don't need other people to see you as anything. Because when a true spiritual growth takes place, there is absolute dissolution of any distortions and corruption in personality. The personality itself dissolves in the higher conscious being, and that higher conscious being starts transmitting. And this transmission is very different from the one that the charlatans exhibit, like cloaking in other people's energies or demonstrating spiritual possession, being possessed and offering people supposedly solutions, healings, etc. Because of the widely spread ignorance, we look for complexity. Because our personalities are complex, that's why we resonate with complex spirituality, not the natural ones. We need to perform, we need to be accepted, we need to be validated and approved. We need to have an authority figure. In real spirituality, you may have guidance, but you're never disempowered through this guidance. Your autonomy is never compromised. That's why you have to watch out for cults, for false spiritual teachers and gurus, whether they are dead or alive. Because real spirituality is rooted at the fundamental principle. You're either living with a capital L or you're dead. As long as you're thinking, you're dying. Contemplate that, please. And you'll come to the conclusion that you've got a subtle ego, and this ego is very difficult to shatter because it holds on to concepts, education, and creates another layer of self, which eventually perishes. And so, when one is rooted in one's natural being, one has refined. Returning to that absorbed natural being state does not guarantee that the refinement process is taking place, because to refine oneself You need to experience that which causes loss, and that which causes loss drains, and that which drains is painful. All that shut down emotions of shame, guilt, fear, etc., that drives your existence. If those are there, if those are not addressed, if those are not reflected back or admitted, you're living in a spiritual delusion, thinking that by performing external acts of morality, religious hypocrisy, and other spiritual acts, you're progressing and going somewhere, or by numbing yourself with substances, even if they're natural, stimulation, different kinds of hallucinogenic substances, you're progressing somewhere. When in fact, you are running away from facing yourselves and developing or feeding, rather, the shadowy self. You think you're doing the shadow work? You think it's rewarding? Where are you after that? How peaceful are you? How untouched and invincible are you after that supposedly successful work? Stop being hypocritical. Stop lying to yourselves. There's nothing worse than lying to oneself and thinking that you've gone somewhere. As long as your body troubles you, you still have work to do. As long as you are not grounded and aligned and emitting that which you claim to be, you're an imposter, you're a wannabe. And this is sad because the majority of people live through this fakeness, through this spiritual delusion, and perish like everyone else. What are the results of your spiritual practice? Where is your longevity, immortality, health, and balance? Your body never lies. Your mind never lies. So if you want to truly heal, and it's very difficult, go within, learn to self-reflect, observe, and cultivate honesty to yourselves, rather than cultivate it in the presence of someone you consider a spiritual authority, or look for victims for the sake of spiritual acceptance, validation. Hopefully, this transmission helps someone, although the corruption of personality is hard to correct and to dissolve. Well, it's a food for thought for some beings who might be willing to self-reflect and yet tread on this path cautiously. Sometimes the veil slides down very, very slowly and blinds you again. Thank you for your attention and be well.